that what we really want to say is that, we want to think about some simple things like who says. So what's the source? According to who? So Dad says fathers know best. All right. And then we might say, how about some frequency adverbs? Always, usually, sometimes, seldom, never. So, you tell me, and then on what topic? What are the conditions? About his wallet? About his schedule? About your interest? Your life? We want to qualify. And then I would also suggest that we be careful about the verbs here. It says knows. Appears to know, tends to know, seems to know. These are very, very useful. And I don't recommend hedging language on Valentine's Day. But other than Valentine's Day, hedging language can save you a lot of trouble. By the way, Barack Obama, our president, he kind of wishes he'd used some hedging language, I bet, when he was talking and selling and promoting his health insurance plan. That period has hurt him a lot. Governor Romney, who is still ex-Governor Romney, I bet he wishes he'd used some hedging language when he was talking about what the 47% in his mind do. Hedging language could have saved that. It would have been a lot easier for people to listen to it and say, some people, da-da-da-da-da. But that vague generalization is very dangerous. And I don't know if you know the movie Crash. Has anyone seen the movie Crash?
Which one? There's two.
The
original.
The one about people that have sexual...
No. The one that takes place in Los Angeles, it's a beautiful movie because it talks about how no one is an angel, no one is a devil, everyone is in context. It may be that you are a loving, devoted son and you are a racist, stupid cop. It is possible to be a different person in different contexts and different relationships. And so the planning that goes in, this movie, from my point of view, is a great example of showing the danger of broad generalizations. Almost every tragedy portrayed in that film comes from people working off of a broad generalization and applying it. That's a problem. I would suggest there are many, many, many problems. When we talk about something like racism or sexism or classism, what are we really talking about? We're talking about taking a broad generalization and putting it into action. And that's not always wise. Yes?
This is a bit of trivia, but Father Knows Best was a TV series in the 50s starring Robert Young where they stereotyped gender roles. Jim Anderson, nice Anglo name, went to work every day, insurance man. The wife stayed home, worked in the kitchen, raised the kids, wore high heels and pearls in the home, got the housewife. The usual. But that was the title, and people were geared into that. You'd never get away with a series like that today.
Right. And thank you for bringing in that cultural context. And it was, definitely like an ideal family. I don't know the exact figures now, but about 15 years ago, there was an analysis of the average family on TV and the income that it would take to maintain this. And most Americans look at the TV and say, well, that's what the average family's like. Well, the income was like $180,000 a year. That is not a typical American income. So then everyone goes around feeling like, oh, I don't make enough money, my life is da-da-da-da-da-da. And, partly it's a false projection of the should. Now, it keeps people buying a lot of products, and it keeps people in a state of dissatisfaction, but it's not an accurate reflection of daily life. Okay, so Father Knows Best, I really think that hedging language is a vital skill. We teach it in writing. I suggest we add it to our speaking exercises, and it's a very simple, powerful tool that we can do. Think about who says, how often, under what conditions, and how strong is that? What's the level of certainty? Is it a knows, or is it appears to know? Is it a tends to know? Seems to know? Is it an appearance or a reality? Okay, many of you know the slogan, just do it. What company is it from?
Nike.
Great. And so, Nike started off with a very small company. They're, extraordinarily successful. President Obama this week went to speak at Nike. They have, something like 690,000 employees, most of them outside of the United States. But the slogan that is a great example of the power of advertising, because their initial ad focus was on radio. It was a small purchase. And the radio ad was designed for a large audience, where you could write in your personal story into their narrative. And so, they had one for a woman, and she's sitting there, and she's kind of ruminating, and and we don't know what the problem is, and we're kind of reflecting. And so whether you're thinking about, should I move, or should I apply to graduate school, or should I get a divorce, or should I take a new job? And you were able to, and her whole thing was against the paralysis by analysis, enough thinking about it, just do it. And it was a really powerful impact. That ad was extraordinarily effective. And you now have a extraordinarily successful global company based on the power of that slogan and that ability. Here's my problem as an academic. I don't know what the do means, and I don't know what the it means. And so I want to be precise and accurate in my language. And there's some tension, because the advertising wants you to motivate and move to a certain thing. So students need to be familiar with the general, and they also need to be able to translate into the particular. Hedging language is really essential to do that. I often have students, when we're starting off on the hedging language assignment, I ask people, can you find 5 slogans that you like, or proverbs, and just bring them into class. And then, then we'll modify them. Boys will be boys, and then we'll modify. Or whatever the slogan is, and then we'll modify and make it more appropriate, make it more accurate. It's a nice activity to be able to do. The next one. The power of Proverbs is knowing when to use them in the right context. And so, as a teacher who wants to motivate sometimes sleepy students, then it behooves me to use a phrase like, no pain, no gain. I know it's difficult. I know it's hard. I know you haven't slept enough. And I know I'm giving you a lot of headaches. And no pain, no gain. And here's the other side. That when someone goes to the emergency room, they're not saying no pain, no gain. They're saying no pain, give me the morphine. So, both of them are very appropriate, but they have to be appropriate for the right situation. So I love Proverbs. I teach Proverbs. I think they're very powerful. There are 3 advantages of Proverbs that I see. One, it's a nod to traditional wisdom and understanding. And students bring them with them, and it's something they've learned and know. It's great. 2, Proverbs are often short, pithy sayings. So even if I don't speak a lot, and I'm not real confident in what I say, I can convey my intelligence and my creativity and my understanding of the topic. I can contribute to the conversation with just a few words. And 3, they're easy to memorize. They're easy to memorize, and you can get a lot of social mileage out of it. And, I use Proverbs all the time when I'm in meetings and just kind of interacting back and forth with people. It is a very powerful tool. That's kind of what I was saying. You want to pick up on the advertising?
So we're going to talk more about, on page 14, we included a quotes and proverbs worksheet. So even though Eric said there are only 15 chapters in the new book, but what we've done is expanded the exercises and the activities for people. Now, my biggest weakness with this book, because I've used it extensively, is that I can't even get through half of the quotes, the proverbs, in one class, because it just opens up so many potentials. So I'll give you more examples, and you can, of course, think of it yourself. Remember, number 1, you're not coming to class that day with your own quotations and proverbs. You have a whole class bringing it from sometimes different cultures, correct? Different backgrounds, different questions. So this worksheet here is excellent, because you're going to have ideas of, first of all, which are the ones that are most confusing to you. So let's start. You say they're hard. I don't understand. Okay, please explain what is it that's confusing. Then below that, the vocabulary building. Part of the problem is not just the sentence structure itself, but the actual words. So suddenly you're developing an entire class out of these proverbs and quotes. And from a selfish perspective, again, I love it because if I do have students from other countries, it's incredible the amount of quotes, proverbs that come out from every culture in different languages, even within one nation, when you have different groups and even dialects, correct? Or, of course, my favorite is when I go down south. I mean, it seems like there's a proverb or a quote for everything. I'm like, wow, I'm loving this. It's so different, right? So, for example, if we take even something like when we look at I'm loving it, I always focus on the omissions, and I talk about that later, is first, middle, and final consonants. Americans, we drop it. Certain cultures out there, they emphasize the last consonant, right? They even make it rhyme, lunch, lunchy, or loving. Well, we need to focus on that. So this kind of reminds me, this is a great place to focus on. Students have problems with the word, let's say, lawyer and royal. Well, depends on the word, the emphasis is different, and which one do we stress more often, right? Think versus bath, right? How silent that TH is at the end. So in this case, I always talk about how Americans, specifically from certain places even more so, drop the ing, right? I'm loving it, or especially the G. So there's so